The Toronto Maple Leafs are experiencing one of those moments where past decisions and future bets intersect. On one side, the management is trying to fix a bold move that didn't go as planned. The trade for Scott Laughton. He arrived to be the engine of the third line, but ended the season as a supporting piece and now faces what could be his last chance to prove his value in Toronto. On the other side, there's a clear sign of planning. The contract extension of goaltender Dennis Hildeby for 3 more years, a move that reinforces the idea of stability in the Leafs' most questioned position in recent years. While Laughton struggles to find his place and possibly move up into the top 6, Hildeby gains time and confidence to develop as a potential starter in the future. 2 different paths, but both say a lot about the present and future of the franchise. Insist on now or build with tomorrow in mind. Can Laughton redeem himself? Is Hildeby really the solution in goal? And before we dive into these 2 stories, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any detailed analysis of the Leafs and what's coming in the NHL. News 1. Remember that bold move in the last trade deadline when the Leafs gave up a first-round pick and a promising prospect to bring in Scott Laughton? It was supposed to be a surgical move, one that would solve a chronic problem and bring the team closer to a championship. But it didn't go exactly like that. Now, with a lukewarm offseason and 2 open spots in the top 6, Laughton's name is back in the spotlight behind scenes. He has a full training camp ahead, but the big question is, despite still playing at a high level, or Scott Laughton's final dance in Toronto? When Kyle Dubas left Toronto, many thought the Leafs would be more conservative in their next trades. But that didn't happen. At the end of last year's trade deadline, the Leafs were aggressive. They sent a first-round pick and prospect Nikita Grabenkin to the Philadelphia Flyers to acquire Scott Laughton. A steep price, no doubt. Why so much excitement? Because the Leafs desperately needed a pivot for the third line. A physical player, defensively reliable, and capable of contributing offensively. Laughton seemed perfect for the role. He had a solid reputation, playoff experience, locker room leadership, and versatility to play center or wing. But the reality was very different from what was expected. Scott Laughton arrived with key player status, but in 20 games with the Leafs, he recorded only 4 points, 2 goals and 2 assists. In the playoffs, his performance dropped even more. 13 games, no goals, only 2 assists. With numbers that low came the consequence, demotion to the 4th line. Instead of being the engine of the third line, Laughton became a checking line player focused on defense. This directly impacted his confidence and, of course, fan perception. Coach Craig Berube even commented that Laughton was trying to play too perfectly, avoiding mistakes, which ended up taking away his natural flow on the ice. It's that old story. When you play afraid of making mistakes, you end up not playing to win. Now, with the season about to begin, a curious scenario arises. The Leafs have 2 open spots in the top 6. According to John Seitzer, a Leafs Nation analyst, Laughton could be an option to move up, but not as a pivot, rather as a winger alongside John Tavares and William Nylander. Why would this make sense? Because Laughton has the physical and defensive attributes that could balance a second-line focus on offense. He would be the player who does the dirty work, covers spaces in the defensive zone, and creates opportunities for more skilled teammates. An interesting comparison. Laughton, in some ways, reminds you what Blake Coleman does for Flames or what Barclay Goodrow did on the championship-winning Tampa Bay Lightning. Not stars, but players who make the engine run. But there's one problem no one can ignore: the contract. Laughton is in the final year of a 5-year deal worth $15 million, with a cap hit of $3 million per season. And according to NHL insider Rob Couch, that number is too heavy for the Leafs' financial situation. Couch was blunt. Toronto won't be able to re-sign Laughton. He will want more than $3 million in his next contract, and the team simply cannot afford it. So even if Laughton has a good year, his fate seems set. This could be his last season in Toronto. And here comes the emotional question. Is he playing to prove he was worth the price? Or playing to increase his market value and secure a better contract elsewhere? It's worth remembering. The Leafs paid a high price for Laughton. They gave up a first-round pick and Nikita Grabenkin, a talented prospect who is still developing today. The question echoing behind the scenes is, was this a planning mistake? If Laughton really leaves at the end of the season, this trade will go down as one of the franchise's failed gambles. It wouldn't be the first time the Leafs sacrificed a future for an immediate reinforcement that didn't deliver. On the other hand, there is still a path to extract value from this story. John Seitzer brought up an interesting point. Putting Laughton on the second line could be a way to maximize his impact while he is still on the roster. As a winger, he could be the responsible forward who helps in transition and provides defensive security for Tavares and Nylander to unleash offensively. But does Laughton have the offensive production for that? Historically, he has had 40-point seasons with the Flyers when playing alongside good teammates. So it's not impossible. The truth is, this season is all or nothing for Laughton in Toronto. He needs a perfect training camp to show intensity, confidence, and most importantly, offensive production. Because if he continues to be just a fourth-line player, the Leafs won't hesitate to trade his rights or simply let him go in the summer. And for the fans, there's that bittersweet feeling. The bold trade didn't bring the expected impact, and now the franchise has to decide whether to insist or move on. Will Scott Laughton silence the critics and earn a spot in the top 6? Or will this be just a quiet farewell season? And more. Will this trade enter the list of costly mistakes of the Toronto Maple Leafs? What do you think? Is it worth giving Laughton another chance? Or is it time to cut losses and move forward? Share your opinion in the comments because this discussion promises to be lively. News 2. The Toronto Maple Leafs officially announced a contract extension of Swedish goaltender Dennis Hildeby for another 3 years. But hold on, this isn't just a simple deal. There are important details that reveal the franchise's planning for the coming years. Let's break it all down now. The new contract is two-way for the 2025-26 and 2026-27 seasons, and then becomes one-way in 2027-28, with an average annual value of $$841,000. For those who follow the NHL market, this number is significant because it gives the Leafs salary cap flexibility while keeping a promising goaltender in the system at an affordable cost. At 24 years old, Hildeby is seen as a medium-term project who could take on a bigger role with the main team. But is he ready for that? Let's look at the numbers to better understand this bet. Last season, with the Toronto Marlies in the AHL, Hildeby played 30 games and had a solid performance. 16 wins, 9 losses. For overtime losses, a goals against average of 2.55, a save percentage of .908, and 2 shutouts. That's very good for a developing goalie. He also participated in the Calder Cup playoffs, appearing in 1 game, though his main impact came during the regular season. In the NHL, he had a small sample, 6 games with the Leafs, recording 3 wins and 3 losses, but with modest numbers, a 3.33 goals against average and a .878 save percentage. These stats show room for improvement, especially if he wants to establish himself as despite still playing at a high level. Looking at his overall AHL history, the numbers are consistent. In 73 regular season games, Hildeby has 37 wins, 21 losses, and 11 overtime losses, maintaining a 2.53 goals against average and a .909 save percentage with 6 shutouts. He has also experienced playoff pressure with 5 postseason games, although with average stats, 1 win, 3 losses, 3.25 goals against average, and a .895 save percentage. An interesting detail is that he was selected to represent the Toronto Marlies in the AHL All-Star Classic in 2 consecutive seasons, 2024 and 2025, reinforcing perception that he has potential for something bigger. Physically, Hildeby is an imposing presence on the ice. 2.01 meters tall and 102 kilograms. He's the type of goalie who takes up a lot of space in the net and, when confident, makes life difficult for any scorer. Originally drafted by the Toronto Maple Leafs in the 4th round of the 2022 draft, 122nd overall, Hildeby has built his path step by step with patience and consistency. The organization seems to believe that this trajectory could lead him to a more significant role in the future. So, what does this extension mean for the Leafs in terms of planning? First, stability in the goaltending department. This has been an area of concern in Toronto for years, and keeping a young, low-cost option is strategic. Additionally, a two-way contract for the first 2 years means he can continue developing between the AHL and NHL without major impacts on the salary cap. When the contract becomes one-way in 2027 to 28, the expectation is that Hildeby will be at least a reliable NHL backup, or maybe even compete for the starter role, depending on how Samsonov and Wall fit into the picture during that period. But let's be honest, signing a contract is one thing, establishing yourself is another. The big question is Dennis Hildeby ready to take the next step? His AHL numbers show consistency, but his NHL sample indicates he still needs adjustment, especially in rebound control and reading plays in transition, where the speed is much higher. The good news is that he has time and, most importantly, support to do so. For Leafs fans, this extension brings hope and curiosity. Hildeby could be the medium-term solution for a position that has sparked many debates and playoff frustrations. If he manages to evolve, he could become a key piece to provide more defensive stability to the team. For now, though, he remains a project. The question for you is, do you believe Dennis Hildeby has the potential to become a reliable NHL starter, or will he just be another name in the goalie rotation Toronto has tested over the years? These two stories show exactly what it means to be a Toronto Maple Leafs. Bold decisions, risky bets, an eternal search for balance between winning now and building for the future. Will Scott Laughton seize this last chance and prove he was worth the price paid? Or will he just be another name on a list of moves that didn't work out? And Dennis Hildeby, will he really establish himself as a piece that can bring stability in goal, or remain just a promise? I want to hear your opinion. Comment below. Does Laughton deserve another opportunity in the top 6? And Hildeby, does he have potential to be a starter in the future? Let's debate, because this discussion promises to be exciting. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications, because it really helps us continue bringing complete and detailed analyses about the Leafs and the NHL world.